Hi friends, Jay Sennett. Welcome to another edition of Cooking with Jay. As always, hope all of you are doing well, and thanks so much for watching the show. Greatly appreciate it. Cooking, those of you who know me, is obviously a very, very deep and serious passion, just like my music, just like my broadcasting career. I have a lot of passions for sure. And my cooking has taken different directions over the past year. I've gotten really heavily, particularly my savory dishes, heavily into the African concept of flavor profile creation, more specifically Northern Africa, like Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, a little bit of Egypt. But then there's Burberry seasoning, which is pretty much out of Ethiopia, you know, those regions in Western Africa. And I take some of those concepts and I merge them with some of my Americana concepts with my food. And of course, if you're a cook, you can't escape the French. And why would you want to, right? You don't want to. Just incredible food that has come out of France over the years. Classic French cuisine, classic French technique, many chefs influenced by what has happened and evolved out of France. And today I'm going to tap back into France and make a dessert. And I don't make a lot of desserts, but you know, lately I've been making more and more desserts. But I don't eat a lot of desserts. That's probably why I don't make a lot of desserts. But for my business, the Cosmopolitan Palate, I wanted to have more dessert options on my menu for menu selections. So today I'm going to prepare for you a delicious French apple cake. And with French cuisine, French cooking, you either have the super complexity or you have the fairly simple but with amazing flavor. The flavors are always so good and rich and deep. This French apple cake, it's a small cake. It's very thin, one layer. And I'll show you how I put this together. Okay, so over here, I'm just deciding which bowl I want to use with this. We'll put a cup of flour, just 1 cup of flour. Now, cooking in general is an art. You know, baking is a science. You know, a couple of friends of mine said baking is a science. It's also an art too. But you have to be a little bit more specific when you're baking. Okay, 1 cup of flour, and in this pan I'm going to use about a half a cup of sugar, but I'm using white cane sugar and light brown sugar. Okay, so 2 different sugars in here. All right, and I have a stick of butter that's melted, not all the way. If you get it room temperature, that's fine. Okay, so to go in with the sugar and the butter, now I'm going to make some noise with my hand mixer and whip this up until you get some gentle peaks on it. All right. And because of the brown sugar, it will turn a light brown color. Okay, you can see that. Whip this good for just a few moments. This is just butter and sugar in here. All right, almost. Okay. Pretty good there. Now, I'm going to add 1 egg at a time. Okay? All right, just 1 egg at a time. Put that in. second egg, just 2 eggs, all right? A French apple cake. Great. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla flavoring, maybe a teaspoon and a half, okay, of the vanilla flavoring, and about 3 tablespoons of dark rum. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yummy. Doing well. Great. Okay. Now, in my dry ingredients, I have 1 cup of flour, and I want to add a teaspoon of baking powder. Okay. Teaspoon of baking powder, and a pinch of salt. Just a little pinch of salt in there. Now, I didn't sift this. I'll mix this around a little bit. Okay, now what I want to do here is add fold this in to the flour, the wet with the flour, the dry ingredients. Almost. Get as much as I can out of it. Okay. Now I'm going to fold this in, and you can do it the reverse way too. Add the flour into the wet ingredients. I don't use a mixer for this. I just use the spatula. Get it all mixed in well. I can get the sides, and when I use this, a French apple cake. Okay, see how that's coming together right there? Nice. Blend well. Now, last but not least, the apple. Now, what apple do you want to use here? I prefer to use a Granny Smith apple because I love the tartness, the texture of the Granny apple, or the Granny Smith apple. And I think that puts a really nice contrast to the sweetness of the cake and that rum, that dark rum. So I just have one, actually, that's a fairly large Granny apple. So I'll just use 3/4 of one large Granny apple. I take the skin off, I peel the apple, and I cut it up in nice little chunks, like so. And I'm going to use a spring pan. Okay, it's a non-stick spring pan, but you can, if you don't have non-stick, just put some butter or oil in there. All right, my spring pan. I have the oven, by the way, preheating to 350 degrees. Okay, so once this is ready for the spring pan, get that in there. Ooh. Around the edges there. Just a little bit more. Okay. Now I want to spread it around the pan. Like so. Oh yeah, looks pretty even. Get some of those drops off the sides. Okay. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. Now we have the French apple cake. 1 cup of flour, okay? 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Pinch of salt for the dry ingredients. A stick of butter. I'm using salted butter, okay? So you can use unsalted, but you're still putting salt in there, but I didn't put much salt in there because I'm using salted butter. About a 1/2 cup of white cane sugar and light brown sugar. I use 2 different sugars in the cake, okay? Butter at room temperature, or you melt it a little bit. Blend thoroughly the butter and the sugar. Then get 2 eggs, add 1 egg at a time. Beat 1 egg in, get it mixed in well, beat the 2nd egg in. Then you add about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla flavoring. Then you add about 3 tablespoons of some dark rum. Then you add those ingredients to the dry ingredients, the flour, baking powder, and salt. Mix well. Then you peel a Granny Smith apple, dice it up, little cubes. I use 1, 3/4 of one because it was a big apple, and slowly mix it into the batter. Right, mix in well. Oven preheated to 350. I'm going over here to put it into the oven, and we are going to bake it for about 40 minutes. Okay? Have everything set. Let me set the timer. La 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 la. Gets up to 10, then it jumps to 5, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Okay. And actually, it will probably end up being about 35 to 37 minutes. Okay? All right. So that's it. That's basically it. Now, I said at the beginning, the French cuisine, you're either cooking for hours, creating these delicious, multi-layered, yummy meals, or you can create some traditional French classics that are fairly simple, fairly easy, and fairly quick to make. But they always have some amazing flavor, deep flavor profiles. So, through the magic of editing, we are going to let the cake bake anywhere between 35, 36, 37 minutes. Stick a toothpick in. If it comes out clean, you got a good cake. All right, you're ready to chomp down on that cake. So what will seem like just a second is actually we're going to go for about 35, 40 minutes. And I'll see you in just a few. Stay with us. Okay, through the magic of editing, I'm back in 1 second. Actually, 40 minutes have gone by. I'm going to pull out the cake. The cake should be done. Woo. Yes, 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 yes. Look at that. Yes, yes, yes. So, what I want to do is make sure the edges are not sticking. Could be too hot. There. Set this down. And one thing I want to do here . Okay. I said, that's where that's some confectioner's sugar over top. Get this knife out of the way, like so. Whew, hot. There it is. I already stuck the toothpick down and it is done. The French apple cake. Oh, and the house smells so good. Ooh, smells so good. French apple cake. You can see it's pretty thin, layered, but fairly easy to make. Delicious cake. Remember, the apple also has some sugar in it and some liquid. So just a cup of flour, 2 eggs, and the dry part, cup of flour, teaspoon of baking powder, pinch of salt. And the wet, the other half, well, the sugar. Then you have about half a cup of sugar, both mixed white cane sugar and light brown sugar. Then a stick of butter. I use salted butter. You can use unsalted. Room temperature. Mix the butter and the sugar well. Okay? Mix it well. Take your time in doing that. Then add 1 egg. Mix well. Blend well. Then add the second egg. So a total of 2 eggs. Mix well. Mix well. Mix well. Then add about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla flavoring. About 3 tablespoons of dark rum. Then you want to preheat your oven to 350. Get a Granny Smith apple if it's a fairly large one. Take the peel off. Chop it up in little cubes. Then fold the wet mixture in with the dry. Get it blended well. Then add the apple chunks in there and mix well. Use a spring pan, 9-inch pan. Pour the batter in a pan, obviously. Smooth it out, level it off, then bake for about 35 to 40 minutes. I would check it at about 35 minutes. If the toothpick comes out dry, you're good to go. If it doesn't, leave it in for a couple more minutes. Then I top it off once you take it out, what I just did there with some confection or some powdered sugar on top there. French apple cake, and it's absolutely delicious. I'm Jay Sennett. Thank you for watching this edition of Cooking with Jay, which airs Sunday evenings starting at 6 on the WHRO Public Media Facebook page. Don't forget about my Senate in Session Jazz Show, Monday through Thursday nights on WHRV FM 89.5 from 9 until 1, Monday through Thursday nights, Saturday mornings 1 until 5, Sunday afternoons from 1 until 5. And I also host the very soulful R&B Chronicles Friday nights from 7 until 8. Until the next edition of Cooking with Jay, be safe, friends. We'll see you then.